Okay, I'm here today with Annamarie Klippenstein from Clippers Organic Acres. And Annamarie and her husband Kevin grow several varieties. How many varieties, Annamarie?
I think this year we have 132 varieties.
132 varieties of heirloom tomatoes.
Heirloom tomatoes. There's a few that are hybrids, but mostly are heirloom tomatoes, like Sun Golds, they're not hybrid. But
right.
Yeah.
And they're a huge draw at the market, a real market favorite, tomatoes are. And of course, they also grow some plants for you to take home and try yourself in your own garden, as we're all trying to grow a little food at home. And so we're going to talk to Annamarie today about getting the most out of your homegrown tomatoes and how to take care of your plants so that they give you the best harvest. So Annamarie, let's take a look at these tomatoes that we have here and maybe talk a little bit about what people should be doing in their gardens to get them ready for growing.
So first of all, when you go home with your tomato plant, you're going to want to take off the bottom leaves and you're going to want to dig a deep hole and bury it quite deep. Because what's going to happen is all these little hairs that are on the tomato plant, they're all going to create roots, which is going to give you a healthier tomato plant. It's going to give you more nutrients going in, and so it's going to give you more tomato plants, happier tomato plant, more tomatoes, happier person growing your tomatoes. The other thing that you're going to want to do is, for an indeterminate plant, you're going to want to take the suckers off. So you can see at the leaf joints, there are suckers. So at that point, you're just going to want to pull them off without damaging the rest of the plant as well. So there was a little sucker there, and then there's another sucker right here. And so again, just take them off. So this is what the sucker looks like. It looks like the top of the tomato plant. So the top of the tomato plant looks like that, and then you can see the top of the sucker also looks like another top of the tomato plant. So essentially what you're going to do is you're going to want more energy going into producing tomatoes instead of green foliage. So there's a couple different ways to do it. If you're growing it in a pot or a backyard or something like that, you're space restricted, you can use a tomato cage and you can take off some of the suckers. Or if you're on a balcony and you want to make it go up a stake and around the corner of your balcony and make it go really long, you would take off all of the suckers, because the tomato plant is going to get quite big and take over your backyard or your balcony if you don't take off the extra suckers.
Right. Okay, cool. So as the tomatoes grow, is there anything that people should be adding to them to make sure that they have all the food that they need to grow?
So in our fields, all of our tomatoes we grow in the field. So we're making sure that we're actually planting our tomatoes into healthy, fertile soils, and we build our soils with green manure, and it's, years of building the soil. And I understand that growing in a backyard or in a pot, you don't have the space or the amenities to build your soil like that. So you do have to add some kind of nutrient supplement. Good things to add would be kelp. There's also, lots of people will use bone meal, as well as a blood meal or a fish fertilizer, and what that's going to do is just give that plant a little bit of extra nutrients. And the way that you know that the plant's going to want some extra nutrients is like this, the yellowing of the leaves on the plant. Sometimes naturally at the bottom the leaves will yellow a little bit, but once the leaves are, they're turning yellow, the plant is nutrients starved. And so in order to produce more tomatoes and healthier plant, you're going to want to feed it something.
Right. Okay. Great. Now, are there any pests or bugs that home growers should look out for, and any that they should be concerned about?
So when you first plant your tomato plant out, and we have a problem every year, is little flea beetles, and they'll come and they'll make little holes in the leaves of your plants. And when you go out to your plant and you look at it every day and you see the damage being done, and it's quite devastating because your plant is in shock from being transplanted, and so it's not really growing at that point, and it's getting eaten by these little tiny flea beetles. But the best thing to do is just kind of plant it, kind of forget about it. You check on it every single day. You're not gonna notice the massive amounts of growth. It's like you have a baby and then all of a sudden he's 13 and he's like taller than you, and well, that's because you're around him every day and you don't realize how fast they actually grow. Tomatoes are the same thing, kind of thing, plants in general. So the worst thing that you can do for your tomato plants is overgarden.
Right.
So don't overgarden, plant them, kind of forget about them. Make sure you give them water in the beginning, just so that they have the water that they need to establish a good root base. The other one is a tomato horn worm, which is a worm that has a horn on it. Best thing you can do about it is pick them off.
Are they ugly?
They're ugly. They can get
Sounds
like that
ugly.
big and they have a little horn that has, well, quite a big horn on them. They're kind of ugly, but
Gross.
you know, just pick them off and get rid of them. The other thing, I know some people will have a problem with, again, it's a potato beetle. And it's a beetle, and it can be about that size, and it will essentially like eat and chew your tomato plants, and it will, you know, infest your potatoes. And the best way to deal with it is, you know, pick them off. I know some people will pick them off, and to get rid of them, they'll put them in like oil or something, just to
kill
get rid
them.
of them,
Yeah.
so that they, otherwise, putting them in water, they'll jump out. So.
And you do this for your thousands of tomato plants?
Well, what we do, again, growing on, you know, we're farming on 40 acres, and so we have 20 acres of ground crops that we rotate. So everything's not in production every year. So we have about a third of the crop, a third of our land that's not in production. So we have a crop rotation. So we never actually plant our tomato plants in the same field as they were planted, and it's like it's pretty much a 5 to 7 year crop rotation. So tomatoes are not going to be seen in that land again for 7 to 5 years.
Right.
And so really the idea of that and rotating your crops is basically the bugs have a hard time keeping up with them. So if you had them there last year, they're there the next year, but there's nothing for them to feed on, and so you kind of eliminate them. They go somewhere else, or they starve to death or whatever because they don't have anything to feed on. So the nice thing about growing on a large scale is that you can
have
do
that
kind of
luxury.
stuff.
Yeah.
But when you're growing in your backyard or your garden or your deck or something like that, you don't have that luxury. So you're going to have to pick them off. And if we do have them, we will pick them off. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. And I guess once you are getting a good crop of tomatoes growing and they're looking good and the fruit is on, what happens what causes things like tomatoes to split or other problems with them once the fruit is on?
So once the fruit is set on the tomato, one thing that can cause a problem with the tomatoes is you can get like blossom end rot, which is caused by lack of water or lack of nutrients, kind of thing. If you overwater your tomato plants, you're going to cause them to split, especially at ripening. And there's certain varieties of heirloom tomatoes that are, you know, super flavorful and great to grow and great to eat, kind of thing, but they will naturally split, and that's part of their trait. And if they do split, they're not going to poison you.
Right. You're growing for taste, not looks necessarily.
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Anything else, Annamarie, that our home growers might need to know about their tomatoes and getting the best out of their crop?
The best thing that I can give information that I could give them on top of that would be to don't over farm your tomato plants. Let them, you know, let them grow and let them be, and, you know, take off the suckers and that kind of thing.
And now all we need is the sun.
Yes.
a nice sunny spot. Yeah.
There was one other thing I was going to say is, the tomato plants, once you plant them, when you're watering them, you want to water them and then you want to let them dry out. So you don't want to, like in the beginning they need water to establish their roots and stuff like that, but once their roots are established, you water them and then let them dry out, and then water them and let them dry out. And the reasoning for that is when you let them dry out, that's when they go into a little bit of a stress mode, and that's when they produce and they push out fruit. And so if you water them constantly all the time, they're just going to have this big, huge green vigor, and you're going to, you know, over garden your tomatoes, and you're not going to get any tomatoes off them, or very few.
Right. So sometimes less is more with tomatoes.
Exactly.
That's great. Okay, this has been an informative tomato growing lesson with Annamarie Klippenstein. Thank you, Annamarie.
You're welcome.